So when we talk about auto failover, I just want, before I always start anything, is I like to show you that the latest release of DSS V6 is the build 6335 that recently released. So please make sure that you're up to date. There's a lot of fixes and drivers that were updated in this release, so that way you're keeping up to date with the DSS V6. All right. If you look at the tab up here, I have two DSSs, one named source up here on the top and one named DSS destination. We're going to start off with the DSS source, and you'll see the last two octets, 1.220. That's going to be my source. And of course, my destination is going to be 1.221. One of the first things we want to do is obviously create an iSCSI target. Well, it's pretty simple. All you do is go to the volume manager, click on action, and you can create the target automatically. We can do that just to show you how quick it is. Make sure you select the use volume replication. I kind of recommend the block IO instead of using file IO. I don't like a file system when I'm doing replications. And so you can, though, in many cases, I seem to like the stability of the block IO. Let's go ahead and enter our amount. We'll just do 50 gig for simplicity, and we'll just observe that little note. Let's go to our secondary destination server. Again, you want to go to configuration, volume manager, then volume groups. And then right on the left side, you'll see your volume group, the VG00. We'll go ahead and configure again our iSCSI volume. Once we got to use the volume replication, selecting block IO, and we'll enter our amount. We're going to use 50 gig. Now let's go back to the DSS source, and here we see the icon noting it's an iSCSI volume, block IO. The task is already set, that's replicated. And now we go right down to the left, you'll see volume replication. Now by default, the volume replication mode is always set to source, so just bear that in mind on the destination. We'll go ahead and leave this for source, and down here we'll put our IP address. So it's really 192.168.20.221, which is pointing to the destination server. Now, I have this on just a 1 gig E, but I do recommend 10 gig E, and you really don't need to purchase a switch, especially if you're using it for dedicated volume replication. You want to make sure that that NIC is dedicated on the mirror server that you're using for volume replication on a dedicated NIC. This is also referenced in the how-to manuals in the library. So we're seeing that, 10 gig E NICs are inexpensive for a single port that you can use that will help to speed up any type of latency, especially if you've got a lot of heavy I/O. All right, so I set my destination. I've got my mirror IP address. Let's go back to source, and let's enter a task. So here we'll just call it volume vrep for volume replication. Now what we're going to do is we're going to scan, and we see the destination volume. So we're going to set the default, so I'm using 1 gig E. And of course, if you've got multiple volumes that you want to replicate, if you're off of 1 gig E, keep in mind that, we only have about X% bandwidth. So if you've got 10 volumes, you might want to consider making possibly 10 meg each for the bandwidth on that. If you have 10 gig E, you can increase that. Now, once this is done, you see the task manager has been created. You want to click the play button. And in a second, you'll see that there will be a date and time underneath the start time. And here it is. And if you look down here, if you click on the down details button, you'll see that it's protocol type synchronous. Now, to verify the status of the volume replication, of course, you get an event that lets you know that it is now being replicated. Let's go to status, tasks. And here you'll see the running task. And what you want to notice or be aware of, that you want to make sure that both volumes are stating consistent. So keep that in mind when you want to make sure that the volumes, if you're doing 10 terabytes or greater, that you want to make sure that everything is consistent before proceeding. Now at this point, we're ready to go to the configuration iSCSI target manager. And here you'll see targets 0. We've created in when we did our action of creating the iSCSI volume. Now, it already created targets, so what we want to do is disable it, because what we want to do is copy the SCSI ID. So what we're going to do is go and copy this. So just right click and copy. And then what we want to do is go back over to our destination, go to the iSCSI configuration iSCSI target manager and targets. And here we see our create our target. And on the right, you'll see that the volume will be available for me to paste the SCSI ID from the source. So that way they're matching. You want to also keep the LUN numbering the same as well. Let's go ahead and apply that. Now the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our target names are the set here, are the same. So we want to set that. So let's go down to the target, and usually I just copy it right here. Just do a Control A, Control C, it copies it. And then we go back, and let's scroll all the way down to the secondary system, and we'll just copy and paste it, that target name. Okay, so what you want to do before proceeding is you want to make sure both of them are the same. So usually what I do is I usually put my eye right on here. I see that this shows that it's DSS source target 0. You can name this, by the way, and it's kind of recommended that you do name it too. Let's say node A or node B. Or MIR1 is preferred. So you would say IQN 2012-07 colon MIR01, and then of course do the rest like that. So what we do is want to verify that they are the same. So once this is done, we're ready to pretty much go right into the auto failover. So when we go to Setup, Network, and then of course interfaces, and one of the first things I do is I want to specify my auxiliary ports. So I have on ETH1 is my volume replication NIC that's dedicated. So I really don't want to put a virtual IP address on that, but I do want to make it an auxiliary connection. So we want to be able to check on that and hit apply. And also want to verify also on my destination. So let's go to destination, network interfaces. And here on the left, down underneath failover, we're going to select E because that's my dedicated volume replication NIC. Okay, so we're going to select that. I do not want to put an a virtual IP address on my dedicated NIC that I'm using for my volume replication. Now let's go back, and also I want to set E2. I'm going to make E2 not only an auxiliary, but also my virtual IP address. So what we'll do is we're going to set this for auxiliary, and also on the source we're going to set E2 for my auxiliary. So you want two auxiliary ports. Typically one for the virtual IP address where your storage is going to be residing on, that you're going to be connecting to. You want to set that as well as your volume replication NIC. So you want to have two auxiliary connections. Now let's go ahead and set our virtual IP address. Now I'm going to be using two virtual IP addresses, so I'm going to need two NICs. So we're going to use E2 and E3. Let's go ahead and set that. I'm going to set, and you want to be able to set it a different subnet and network. So I'm going to use 192.168, and we'll go with 10.11.255.0, and the subnet mask 192.168.10.255. And of course, once this is done, let's go to the destination and set it for E2 as well. Here we are, we're going to set it. And a lot of times it's already preserved in cache, so you can just click and apply. It's that fast. So that makes life easier. Now let's go ahead and set our virtual IP address for E3. And while we're here at destination, we can do this and save ourselves an extra mouse click. So I'm not going to enable the auxiliary connection for E3. We already got E1, we already got E2. Let's go ahead and enable this, and we're going to set this one to 11.11.255.255.255.0, and here we're going to set this our broadcast 11.255. Let's hit apply on that. Once that's done, let's go ahead and go to our source and set our virtual IP address for that as well. But we're going to click on enable. And here we already have our cache preset, so it makes life much easier. All right, once this is completed, really the next step is to go ahead and go back to the destination, go to the failover service. We're going to enable it. So here we're going to enable the functionality. We're going to leave the broadcast. We're going to pretty much leave everything the same here, and we're just going to say the primary node, and that's the IP address, and we're going to use 1.220. So that's the IP, if you notice right here up on the browser tab where you see the IP address, that's what I'm going to be using, pointing to the primary server. And once that's completed, we go to the source, go to failover, and then we're going to connect the enable failover functionality. Now here, the primary node, localhost, secondary node, here we have is that we're going to point it to 1.221. Now, what I want to point out is the ping nodes. The ping nodes I have set for actually pointing to my router and also to another VMware server. You pretty much want to use a ping node that has a pretty much high uptime, UPS, router, something that's going to have a great amount of uptime, that you have some type of uninterrupted power system, something that you have some uptime, that you have a generator in the back, something that's going to be up for a long time. The ping node helps with the auxiliary that we set, the auxiliary ports for the heartbeat. So that if a ping node goes down, the auxiliary keeps seeing that they can communicate with each other, your failover won't happen. Only if the ping node and the auxiliary go down, then it will fail over to the secondary server. So once we have this set, then we're going to go ahead and leave trigger failover on I/O errors. Pretty much I like to leave this default because let's say you have an issue on your RAID array and you have multiple volumes, and I really don't want just the volumes on my iSCSI targets that are on, that I created my line. I probably want to know if there's other issues on the volumes that if I did, I want to make sure that the whole system will fail over if there's any I/O errors, because you don't want to have any issues. So this is why I leave the trigger failover on I/O errors on all. If you just say react for volumes configured in failover, well, that may not help you because you may roll over to another issue. So it's always best to leave it at that point. All right, we'll just go ahead and hit apply. And then what we'll do is we'll scroll down and we'll see that before we scroll down, sorry about that, I wanted to show that we're looking for the ping node status to say okay, and of course it did find them and it verified it. And it will also do that on the secondary, is that when we reload, when we complete, you'll see all this being updated once we start the failover service finally. So scroll down, we want to be able to select iSCSI and apply. And here you'll see the volume replication task that we've created. Let's go ahead and swing this over to our failover task and hit apply. And once this is completed, then we can go ahead and click on the start button below. Now, if at any time if it fails, you want to go back to make sure that your replication tasks are completed. You want to make sure that your SCSI IDs are exactly the same. You want to make sure that your target names are the same. Even I have misconfigured it too because I'd be busy working on something, interrupted by a phone call, and forget a step. But once you do this, you'll be able to backtrace it. Also, make sure that your auxiliary ports are matching. And also for your ping node. Those aren't in your virtual IP address. If not, it'll note it, and you'll be able to figure it out from that. But if you just check those points, it'll pretty much be successful on the failover service and be able to look at the volumes and say. So here we go. We got an issue. So let's verify. Failover failed iSCSI target configuration mismatches. So let's go ahead and troubleshoot it. Usually I do troubleshooting so that way it helps in scenarios like this. So let's go backtrace our steps. This is why we do some of the things so that way we can troubleshoot. In the real world, that's what happens. So let's first start off with the iSCSI target manager and let's look at our targets. So we'll go into source, look at target 0. What do you see? Well, we didn't enable it. So let's go ahead and enable it because we copied it and we pasted it, but we didn't go back to check that we enabled it. So that's why I set up in the beginning, you saw that I created the target, but on the destination, I did not create the target. And then I wanted to show something that we can refer back to. And while we're here, let's just verify that the SCSI ID and runs are the same. So I usually take the last letters, capital XPS right here, and I'll run it by through the destination. And here we see that the last letters XPS do match and align 0. So we should be good now. Let's go ahead and go back to setup, network failover. And let's go ahead and start again. And sometimes I have actually misconfigured my auxiliary ports where I would use, let's say 4 or 5, and I forget, and then it'll come up and let you know that you need to match the auxiliary port connections. It's quite easy to identify the issue at that point in time. And just enable it and match them, and you'll be at a successful state. So while this is firing up, let's go ahead and check to see I want to make sure my VMware server's up. It looks like it is, so I can go ahead and we'll come back down here and wait for the failover manager to begin. So what's going on right now, to let you know, is that it's verifying the volumes, the metadata, it's checking everything, it's checking the auxiliary ports, it's verifying once more the ping nodes, and it's creating a lot of services. The logs are being created, so for both statuses. And if you have more than one task, it'll pretty much take a little bit longer than this, but not much more than a minute or two. So here it's finished. Both sides are successful. Let's go ahead and verify up on top. Here we see everything. The service is running okay. The node status that we're on, it's primary and it's the active server. The ping node group status is okay and all the ping nodes. The failover service for the iSCSI targets that we have are okay and they're on. And of course the communication via the ports of the ETH1 for the failover service and ETH1 and 2 for the auxiliary ports. So it looks like we're good. Also, you can look at the status task here and make sure that they're consistent to consistent. So at this point, we're ready to go to our VMware ESXi server. Go ahead and bring them up and make sure everybody can see it. There we go. All right, so we want storage adapters, and in storage adapters, we want to go to here the iSCSI storage software adapter, and we use, typically I like to use static discovery. You don't have to, but especially in HA environments, you pretty much want to do that. You notice we're going to have the iSCSI target name. So let's go ahead and copy that. So we'll go to DSS, go to configuration, iSCSI targets. We'll click on target 0, and we'll copy it here. Paste it, and we'll enter our IP address. So our virtual IP address that we entered is one of them, 192.168.10.11. And we'll enter our other virtual IP address that we've had set up, 192.168.11.11. And we'll copy our target name. Okay, so we've got our virtual IP address, 192.168.10.11, and also 11.11. Go ahead and close it out, and of course we're going to rescan. And here we see our iSCSI target. Now at this point we want to go to our storage right here on the left side on ESXi, go to add storage. Here we see the disk load. I'm going to go ahead and select next. See our storage on our 50 gig that we created. Take the defaults. And we'll call this DSS V6. And we'll finish it. So it's in progress right now. Take a moment. And then after that, then we'll go ahead and configure the MPIO with ESXi. And here we have it. So here is our target. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Properties, and we'll manage paths right here on the right. Now, if you notice, one of the NICs that I have on the VM kernel that I've set It's also on the same subnet. So you've got 11.11 and 10.11. So actually, I made a faux pause. So we'll see what happens. There we go. Actually, no, we're okay. So here, we'll just take this two, and we're going to set for Robin. We'll change it. What we're looking for to make sure both are stating active I/O on both of them. Where previously, VMware 6 default, only one will be active I/O. So here we want to be able to have multipathing working for us. We want to be able to select round robin VMware, select change, and once we see the status of active I/O on both of them, then you are done. So there is your DSS V6 with iSCSI auto failover and with the ESXi VMware MPIO. And that is how easy it is. So at this point, that's about all that's there for the show. And if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer them on the chat window. Thanks again for showing.